Seventh pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Tre'Davious White, defensive back, LSU.
Thinking Super Bowl thoughts in Buffalo, and for good reason. They were just that close last year in that heartbreaking loss to Kansas City. Here's the commissioner, Roger Goodell.
The Baltimore Ravens have traded the 23rd pick to the Buffalo Bills. With the 23rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Kaiir Elam, defensive back.
Roger Goodell, the commissioner, at the podium.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have traded the 7th pick to the Buffalo Bills. With the 7th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is now episode 3 of the Slack and McCracken Sports Podcast. Things are moving fast. This would have been episode 4, but life's been crazy and shit just happens, and so here we are. It was going to be a pre-draft and a mock draft, but that didn't happen. I've just been really busy lately. So we're going to do a little bit of a mix of a review of the NFL draft today and kind of a mock draft of what I thought could have happened and what actually happened, just to kind of put them both together so we're caught up to speed here. But before we get started here, talking about the draft and talking about what's going to happen next, I just want to take a moment to have a moment of silence for Les Ralston, who unfortunately passed away on April 23rd. I just want to give a moment because he was a huge Buffalo Bills and Sabres sports fan, and he was a really good guy, and it was just unfortunate what happened, and it's a sad part of life. You know, we come and we go, and it's one of the things we unfortunately have to go through. And he was just a really good guy, a funny guy, a great dancer, and just there was nothing you could ever say bad about him. He served this country. He was a really good man, a great grandfather, a great father, and good brother. Just a great all-around family man, and he will be missed. And I just want to give a moment of silence because he was really close with my grandmother. I just want to give him a moment of silence here. Okay. Thank you for that. It's a tough part of life. It really is. I just wanted to give some respects here because he was, like I said, a very, very big fan of the Buffalo sports, and I just think that it was needed. I just feel like it was needed. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into the NFL draft, like a review of the NFL draft. All right, first we have Jacksonville on the clock. This pick really could have gone for me 3 different ways, or even 4. I figured that, honestly, the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to take a tackle. I figured Evan Neal, without a doubt, or Ike Ekwonu, or they could have went Aiden Hutchinson. But as the draft got closer this week, it's smoke season, you know, so rumors come out here and there, and just everything gets blown up right before the draft, and people start changing their minds. It's crazy. So the Jacksonville Jaguars ended up going with Travon Walker out of Georgia, and not that it could be a bad pick, but they're going on him based off of not his production, but his potential in the NFL. Kind of like a Josh Allen pick. You know, Josh Allen's production at Wyoming wasn't terrible, but his NFL production is skyrocketed. So I think that's what they're hoping they could get out of Travon Walker. But I just felt if you're going to take a defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson's the best there. But knowing that Trent Baalke is pretty much running the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he had his falling out in San Francisco back in 2014 with Jim Harbaugh, he wasn't going to take one of Jim Harbaugh's prospects. There's a grudge there. It's just that shit's just ugly. So Aiden Hutchinson's left on the board here, and since he is in a scenario, I figured if he's there, this is an all-round Dan Campbell pick, a guy who we're going to bite their kneecaps off. That's basically what Dan Campbell said in his press conference. So he goes to the Detroit Lions here, and insane pick. They probably didn't expect him to be there, and I'm sure they were just honestly just flabbergasted, or even they were just all around excited that he was right there on their laps, just like Penei Sewell was. So, okay, so number 3, we have the Houston Texans, and I figured here the Texans could have also went with tackle. Yes, they have Laramie Tunsil, but I figured you get another guy, you move him to the right side for Davis Mills, who is going to at least have one more year on their team. They end up taking Derek Stingley Jr., though, a corner out of LSU, which isn't a bad pick. Derek Stingley Jr. is rated very high, but I would have taken Sauce Gardner. If we're talking about who's the best corner, that's just my opinion. He didn't allow a single touchdown in college, but Derek Stingley Jr. is basically, his draft stock is way up there because of his 2019 film. He had an insane year with LSU in 2019, and in 2020 and 2021 he had good years, but he wasn't fully healthy. So teams are going off his 2019 footage or his 2019 film, and that's pretty much why he's still up there as he is, because you can't miss out on a corner like that. And teams need a number one shutdown or lockdown corner. And especially today, if you're in the AFC like the Houston Texans with all these receivers, you really need a lockdown corner. And Derek Stingley can definitely be the guy. Number 4, I had the New York Jets taking Sauce Gardner, and they ended up taking Sauce Gardner, or Ahmad Gardner. His nickname is Sauce, which is just awesome. And he, without a doubt, best corner of this draft, and it's certainly going to help the Jets out in a much-needed, horrible defense. And he will definitely play a role. He will definitely be a really good corner in this league. I definitely think so. And yes, it's in college and the NFL are two completely different things, but to not allow a single touchdown in college, that's impressive. And I definitely think Sauce is going to have a hell of a career. And I hope the Jets don't ruin him, because the Jets ruined so many good prospects, and it's just aggravating to watch as an NFL fan. Number 5 here, we have the New York Giants. Now, I figured they were going to go tackle first and then defensive end, or tackle and linebacker, but they ended up flip-flopping it. They ended up taking Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. I hope I said that last name right. That's going to take some getting used to. Without a doubt, edge rusher still on the board. He could have gone to Houston or New York, the Jets, but he instead goes to the Giants, and they need help on that pass rush. They have Leonard Williams, but they really need help there. And, you got to start from the lineup, and they did that, not just at pick 5, but also at pick 7, which we'll talk about in a second here. So, but first we have the Carolina Panthers before we go back to the Giants at number 6 here. So, number 6, the Carolina Panthers ended up taking Ike Ekwonu out of North Carolina State, which I don't blame them, because when they talked about this guy coming out, he was a man amongst boys. I mean, just an insane run blocker, a hell of a competitor on that offensive line. It says here on his Pro Football Focus profile here, 5-time big blocks versus Mississippi State, 80+ overall grade in first 6 games of 2021. And it says here, Ekwonu is the single most dominant run blocking tackle in the country. His 18 big-time blocks in the run game this past season were 7 more than the next closest Power 5 offensive lineman, which honestly could have made him the best offensive lineman in this draft. And the Panthers need help on that O-line, especially they don't have a left tackle, and they still need quarterback help, but even if you have Darnold there, he has blindside block protection, and it's definitely needed if you want to build up your offense. Going back to the Giants now, at number 7, they take tackle Evan Neal out of Alabama, 6'7", 350 pounds. This guy is huge, and it is definitely going to help them moving him to the right side. He can play right tackle because they took Andrew Thomas last year, so that's definitely going to help Daniel Jones this year and whoever is their quarterback next year. It's definitely a good pick for the Giants here. All right, number 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and this I had him taking a receiver. Now, I just didn't know which receiver they're going to take. I had a feeling they could have taken Jameson Williams, but he tore his ACL. They could take Drake London, which they did, but I wasn't sure they were going to because of his ankle issue. I figured without a doubt Garrett Wilson's there. They could take him. He's fully healthy, but they ended up going with Drake London, and that is no problem at all. Although I will say, Jameson Williams is right there. Was the best receiver in this draft class, but Drake London, 6'4", 219 pounds, and only 20 years old. He'll be 21 going into the 2022 season, but he unfortunately ended his season early with a broken ankle, only 8 games played, but he had 88 catches for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, just a massive receiver, and Falcons have been really good with receivers. They drafted Julio Jones way back in the day, Roddy White. They drafted Calvin Ridley, although he's not playing this year because of his gambling suspension. They've been really good at hitting on receivers, so this is without a doubt a good pick for Atlanta, who needed a number 1 wide receiver, at least for this year, because like I just said, Ridley's not playing. They need someone who's going to play the number 1 role, and Drake London, at his size, it's a good pick. It's a really good pick for the team at a much needed position because they have the worst receiving core in all of football right now. Like, that's not even a joke. So, number 9, the Seattle Seahawks. This was another one. Kind of different scenarios here. So, I figured if Malik Willis is there, you trade Russell Wilson, and you get this draft pick from Denver, wouldn't it make sense to take a quarterback? And I think Malik Willis could have fit that system in Seattle. They took Charles Cross, a tackle out of Mississippi State. Not a bad pick at all. The Seattle Seahawks need help on that offensive line. They have for years. Russell Wilson's just been getting pummeled for years, and they really need help on that offensive line. So that's without a doubt a good pick. But I even think if Derek Stingley was still on the board, if like the Texans would have taken a tackle, that they would have been there. They should have taken him too, or maybe they could have taken Trent McDuffie out of Washington. It didn't seem like Pete Carroll wanted to do a rebuild. I wasn't sure if he'd take the tackle, kind of like a boring quote unquote pick, but he ended up taking the tackle, which is not bad at all. It'll help. I mean, Geno Smith or Drew Lock was ever going to play, but they really need a quarterback still, and they could wait till next year. But Pete Carroll said himself he doesn't want to do a rebuild, so like, wouldn't you take a quarterback? I mean, I know Malik Willis needs time. I know that's his thing. Like he's not ready yet, but it's just, for me, it's his athletic ability and his arm strength. Would have made sense there at number 9. I know that maybe that's still a little too high, but they didn't even get him at all in the draft. I mean, Malik Willis ended up going to the 4th round to Tennessee, which is crazy, but understandable because Ryan Tannehill is average at best, and he had a terrible playoff performance, so it makes sense for them to get Malik Willis. He could sit behind Tannehill for a couple years, but we'll see what happens on that front. All right, number 10, the Jets are once again on the clock here. I could have seen them trading this pick for Deebo Samuel. I think everyone saw them trading this pick to the Niners for Deebo Samuel. He wants nothing to do with the San Francisco 49ers. He was in a club at LA. They had this sign up that said Deebo Samuel is staying with the 49ers, and they cut to him, and he's right there, and he's giving them the no. Hell no. So I don't know what's going to happen with Deebo Samuel, but he ended up staying on their roster, and the Jets here ended up taking, at number 10, they ended up taking Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, which is without a doubt a good pick because he can definitely help the receiving core that needs it. They have Elijah Moore. They have Corey Davis. Denzel Mims, I don't know if that's going to work out or not, but he had potential coming out of Baylor. But now they add Garrett Wilson. His ability to generate separation is the best in the class. This is his Pro Football Focus profile. Produced at a high level from both the slots, 73.4% of his snaps in 2020 and 82.9% of his snaps in 2021. So Wilson could play outside and in the slot. It's a really good pick for the Jets, and it'll certainly help out Zach Wilson, who needs weapons, who needs that kind of help, and the Jets have been working on that for him, which is a good thing for him. Okay, let's see. Number 11 is the New Orleans Saints, and they ended up taking Chris Olave because they traded up for this pick. Now, I thought Washington was going to pick here, but they ended up trading back. They take Chris Olave here, which is a good pick for them. You know, it'll help Jameis Winston. I mean, yes, they have Michael Thomas, but he didn't play it all last year. It'll help Jameis Winston, but I mean, Chris Olave could have probably been there for them. I don't blame them for trading up. Receivers are going off the board fast. You have the whole contract thing that happened this offseason that just blew up the market. Makes sense to get a rookie on a rookie contract. You develop him, and if he ends up being something, you have him cheap compared to paying him tons of money. So it's definitely the new move in the NFL. Receivers definitely a top need now compared to what it used to be. Now, this next pick's interesting. Lions. It's originally Minnesota's pick. They move up 20 spots. And this is surprising that the Vikings allow a division rival to move up. And not only move up, but their division rival, the Lions, takes Jameson Williams out of Alabama. When the Vikings secondary, with the exception of Harrison Smith, isn't all that great. I mean, they have Patrick Peterson, but that you allowed a division rival to get Jameson Williams and have him with Amara St. Brown, I don't know. It just doesn't look good for Minnesota. Great pick for the Lions. They get a receiver and they get their defensive end. They're building a good team in Detroit. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. They're building a good team down there. All right, next pick is the Philadelphia Eagles. They also make a trade up for this pick, and they take Jordan Davis out of Georgia, a polarizing draft pick. But Jordan Davis, 6'3", 341, and ran a really good combine for his size. Makes sense. You pair him with Fletcher Cox, and you have Ingram on that line too. You are going to have a good run stop in line, and that's what the Eagles need, and it's a good pick for them. And then they also trade and get A.J. Brown, wide receiver from the Titans. Crazy. That was a shocking moment of the night, and that helps a much-needed receiving core for the Eagles, which they do have Devonta Smith, but after that, it's kind of, just shit. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, Jalen Reagor is awful. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is a bust, and they took him over DK Metcalf. They also took Reagor over Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, it's not good either for Howie Roseman. Now he has A.J. Brown, and he took Devonta Smith, which was good. So now, Jalen Hurts has some weapons, and he has Dallas Goedert, and he has Miles Sanders behind him, so they're going to roll with Jalen Hurts one more year, and no excuses. Like, you got your weapons, you got to make it happen now. You got to make it happen, or this is it. So we'll see what happens with Hurts. He's going into year 3, and it's a make-or-break year for Jalen Hurts, that's for sure. Number 14. Pick 14 is the Baltimore Ravens. They take Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. And what's shocking, too, not that it was a bad pick, but they're talking about trading Chuck Clark now. Right after the Kyle Hamilton draft pick, NFL teams expect the Ravens to trade safety Chuck Clark after drafting Kyle Hamilton. So who knows what's going to happen with his future? But the shocking thing after this pick, not that Kyle Hamilton's a bad pick, 6'4" for safety. I mean, just the potential at DB is insane for this kid. Like the upside is up there. Right after this pick, Hollywood Brown, wide receiver, gets traded after having a 1,000-yard season. That was shocking. Because that was Lamar's boy. That was Lamar Jackson's number one target, pretty much, in the receiving core. I mean, yes, he has Mark Andrews. That was his bailout guy, but him and Hollywood Brown, like, he loved Hollywood Brown. And, like, just when I saw that, I was like, that's going to piss him off. And sure enough, it did. I mean, he retweeted, WTF tweet from a Ravens fan, and I don't blame him. I mean, he has Rashad Bateman, and I don't know who else now at wide receiver. He has Mark Andrews, and they drafted some good tight ends, which will definitely help. They'll probably have dual threat tight end sets for their offense, and they'll be running it a lot more with Lamar Jackson and probably a healthy Dobbins, but I just don't know who he's going to throw the ball to. I mean, I really just don't know yet, but we'll see. So number 15 is, once again, the Houston Texans here, and they end up taking Kenyon Green, a guard out of Texas A&M. And the Texans needed every position, so bolstering their offensive line works. Like I said, I thought they were going to take a tackle in the beginning, but they end up taking a versatile guard in Kenyon Green, and not a bad pick at all. I'm going through the draft order as it is now. There were a lot of trades, so if I do miss some, my bad. But number 16 here, Washington commanding football team. I don't know what the fuck to call them anymore, but Washington goes with Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, another weapon for Carson Wentz. And considering that they have to pay Terry McLaurin, who knows how much money he's gonna want. Like I said, the receiver market is just broken now, so getting Jahan Dotson on a rookie contract will be good, and another weapon for Carson Wentz will be a good thing for them. Number 17 is the Los Angeles Chargers, and they take Zion Johnson, a guard out of Boston College, which helps, for Justin Herbert. It helps. More protection, the better. They took Rashawn Slater last year, and they really need help on that offensive line to continue to bolster for the young Herbert. And why not? He has over 9,000 yards in his first 2 seasons as an NFL quarterback, the most ever by a quarterback. And Justin Herbert's a top 5 quarterback, no question about it. He's going to continue to improve. He's going to continue to succeed, and continuing to protect Justin Herbert is just going to do nothing but help his career. Number 18, we have the Titans. Since they trade A.J. Brown for pretty much nothing, they take Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, which is another A.J. Brown, basically. They basically reloaded. I mean, he's a physical receiver, he's fast, but you still get rid of A.J. Brown, your number one playmaker. You have Ryan Tannehill. I don't know. You have Derrick Henry, but he only played a half of the season. He played a great half, but he only played half of the season, and you're gonna increase his workload now, which could diminish Derrick Henry at some point. Derrick Henry's great for the game of football, just a tank. If you increase his workload too much, he could get hurt again. And not saying Treylon Burks can't succeed, and you have Robert Woods now, but I'm not sure where you're going to go here. I'm not sure what the Titans are thinking here. They didn't even offer A.J. Brown $20 million. They offered him $16 million at the most. Yes, I know that all their money's tied up in Tannehill and tied up in Derrick Henry, but you're telling me you couldn't make some pay cuts or make some moves or figure something out? That is your number one guy, A.J. Brown. I would love to have A.J. Brown on my football team. He came back from 2 knee injuries and he was still successfully a number 1 receiver. And I don't like the Titans. I hate them. And this only just makes me hate them more. The disrespect. Okay, anyway, moving on. New Orleans Saints, number 19, a pick they acquired right before the draft. I figured this right here, that they would take a quarterback. I figured maybe they would, because it's like, why else would you trade up in this year's draft class? Because all the quarterbacks are next year. Yes, they have Jameis Winston. If anything, he's just a bridge. They end up taking Trevor Penning, a tackle out of Northern Iowa. Nothing wrong with that. Continue to, protect Jameis Winston. I got absolutely no issue with that at all. But and Jameis Winston he had a strong showing for only playing a couple games with the Saints. Time will only tell with Jameis Winston. I'm still not that big on him, but he played pretty good for the Saints when he was healthy, but he still has some work to do. But he just hasn't panned out as the number 1 overall pick like he was supposed to be. So, all right, number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this could have been anyone's ball game with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I figured if anything, they go O-line, D-line, or quarterback. One of the 3 scenarios. I figured if Jordan Davis was still here, they would definitely take him. Urinating Tree, diehard Steelers fan, funny-ass YouTuber, wanted him, and he said, we need help on a run defense, and if I'm going to take anyone's opinion on the Steelers, it's definitely going to be him. But I figured they take a quarterback here. You have Mitch Trubisky. As of right now, he's your bridge quarterback. I figured it's got to be Malik Willis, because just all these rumors have been coming out since February about Malik Willis to the Steelers. I mean, Mike Tomlin had dinner with him, and I know they all talk and stuff throughout the offseason, but I just figured figured that would be a really good fit, but instead they went with the local boy and Kenny Pickett. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, a great Cinderella story if he ends up panning out. He had his small hands issue, but I liked Kenny Pickett, but still was kind of a shock over Malik Willis. Everyone figured Malik Willis was going to be the number one quarterback taken, but he ended up going in the 4th round, so something must have not been right with him, or else he would have been taken in the 1st round. So we'll have to just, like I said, see. But Kenny Pickett to the Steelers could be pretty good. You have him sit behind Mitch Trubisky for a year if you have to. He is NFL ready, but you could have him sit behind Trubisky and learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. Take off the pressure from the rookie, and then he comes into his 2nd season, or if he has to, his 3rd season, kind of like what Trey Lance is doing. Coming in his 2nd year, he sat on the bench. He did have to come in for a little bit. He got some reps, but just take the pressure off the rookie, let him learn, let him develop, and go from there. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that's a good pick for the Steelers. I think Kenny Pickett's a boomer bust player, but his potential's up there. I really do think it's up there, and we'll have to just wait and see. I liked him coming out, though. So New England was supposed to be on the clock here. 21, Kansas City Chiefs, trade up. Bills are pick 25, right there. And I'm thinking, we go corner. Trent McDuffie, all the way. No, that's not what happens. You know why? Because the Kansas City Chiefs are assholes, and they take our guy. But they took the guy I wanted. I was upset. I liked Trent McDuffie. I thought he was one of the best corners in this draft. And of course, Kansas City, our rival, takes him. But, that's how it is as a Bills fan. That's just how it is sometimes. You just you move on. Short memory, you move on. It's a good pick for the Chiefs, and him with Snead, I think, will be a good pairing. They lost Javarius Ward to free agency, and they need help. And that secondary, Trent McDuffie will definitely help them here. Next, pick 22. Originally was the Las Vegas Raiders draft pick, but with the Devontae Adams trade, it now belongs to Green Bay. I figured right here, Green Bay Packers get a wide receiver. No question. You trade your number wide receiver, you draft another receiver to replace him. But the Packers didn't do that. They went with Quay Walker out of Georgia. They boosted that defense. Nothing wrong with that. Continue to add to that stacked Packers defense. But, I figured they'd go receiver, but they didn't. It is what it is. But this class is loaded with receivers. They ended up getting one in the 2nd round, so there's nothing wrong with that. They ended up taking Christian Watson out of North Dakota, 6'4". They've had really good success in the 2nd round with receivers, and I'm sure the Packers will be fine. You have Aaron Rodgers. You still have Randall Cobb. He's old, but you still have him, and you have, hopefully Amari Rodgers can work out for them, and you have Sammy Watkins. If he stays healthy, he can play some snaps for you. He's injury prone, but if he stays healthy, he can be out there and get some reps. Aaron Rodgers, I think, still needs a true number 1 receiver, but he can be that. We'll still have to wait and see. The Packers here went with Quay Walker. No problem with adding to that defense. So pick 23 belonged to the Arizona Cardinals, but the Bills end up with this pick. When the Cardinals got Hollywood Brown, they traded the 23rd pick. They traded 2 picks to get him. So Baltimore had this pick. Baltimore was about to be on the clock. Bills trade up 2 spots, lose a 4th round pick. No big deal. And they go with the last guy they had on their 1st round board. Brandon Beane was left with one guy left on his board, and that was Kaiir Elam, cornerback out of Florida. All Florida fans love this guy. They say this dude's a stud, 6'1", great size. I think he'll be able to come in here, pretty much have an impact early, watching his highlight tape and getting to know him. And he was like, I want that playbook on the plane. So he's eager to learn, eager to understand this system, and I'm excited for Elam. I think when Tre'Davious White comes back and he's on the other side, and you have Taron Johnson in the slot, and you have Dane Jackson as the number 4 corner, I think you're stacked. I think you fix that problem. You fix that needed at cornerback too, and it's a good pick for the Bills all the way around. It's what they needed. Glad that's what they went with, and I can't even be mad about it. I did want McDuffie, but it is what it is, and Brandon Beane knows more than I do, and I will continue to trust that process because he's been really good in the draft. So number 24 is the Dallas Cowboys. Oh boy, gotta love Dallas, man. Just fucking gotta love them. Anyway, so they went with Tyler Smith, an offensive lineman out of Tulsa, and not that you can't add to the offensive line. I always agree with adding to it, but my issue with this is not them getting a lineman. It's the fact that the Dallas Cowboys had problems with penalties last year, and adding Tyler Smith to the team, he was one of the most penalized tackles in college football. I don't know how that's going to help your penalty problem. And having Mike McCarthy, I just don't know. I don't know what Dallas is doing anymore. I'm not saying it could be a bad pick for him, but it's not going to help their penalty problem. I think it might do them more harm than good. Just have to wait and see. Pick 25, this was now the Ravens pick, another draft pick for them, and they went with Tyler Linderbaum, offensive lineman out of Iowa. I have some buddies in the military who are big Iowa college football fans, and I was asking my one buddy about him. I said, hey, who should I watch this year in the NFL draft coming out of Iowa? And he said Tyler Linderbaum. He told me this earlier in the season, coming up in the draft from Iowa. They were all telling me, George Kittle came out of there and whatnot, and he said, watch Tyler Linderbaum. This guy's an animal, and it's a good pick for the Ravens, and it'll definitely be their future. He's a good guy. I figured if anything, maybe the Bills could have taken him. I was one of the guys that wouldn't have been mad if the Bills would have taken him, but like I said, we really needed that corner, so I think it's a good pick. But if they would have taken Tyler Linderbaum, I wouldn't have totally been mad about it, because he can play guard, he can play center, interior line, but I'm glad we went with our corner, but it's a good pick for the Ravens overall. I'm surprised Linderbaum fell that far down. I really am. So number 26 was originally for Tennessee. Pick 26. So the Jets trade back into the first round, and with that, they take Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State. Not a bad pick for the Jets. They need to bolster that defense overall, like I said, because it's just really bad, and you get Carl Lawson coming back healthy, and now you have Jermaine Johnson. You were able to have two good defensive ends, and it'll definitely help the Jets. The Jets had a really nice draft, I will say that, and they're certainly building something in New York, but until Zach Wilson becomes a legit quarterback, if he can, the Jets are going to continue to remain who they are, and that's the same thing with the Dolphins. The Dolphins have made nice moves this offseason, but unless Tua can figure it out, which is honestly, in my opinion, unlikely, until you have your guy, your number one quarterback, until you have a good quarterback, a legit quarterback, you're going to be either at the middle or you're going to be at the basement. So we're just going to have to wait and see on both those teams. So pick 27 was originally for Tampa Bay, but Jacksonville trades back in. And with this, Jacksonville, right away, the pick was automatically in. They took Devin Lloyd, a linebacker out of Utah. Continue to add to that defense, much needed. They lose Miles Jack. They did add to linebacker this offseason, but good overall pick. They need to continue to bolster that defense, and they need to build the thing right in Jacksonville. They need to build the team right this time with this addition of Devin Lloyd. Green Bay, once again, on the clock, and here they take pick 28. They take Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle out of Georgia. He'll mostly play that interior, but it'll definitely help Kenny Clark. Much needed, again, for that Packers defense, continue to bolster it. But surprised they still didn't take a receiver here again. They took one in the second round, but I was still shocked they didn't take a receiver. I figured take a receiver, maybe take an O-lineman, but they went defense, and so be it. So be it. They know more than I do, but so be it. Pick 29. New England was able to get this pick, and with this pick, New England drafts Cole Strange. This was kind of a reach. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. This was a reach. Cole Strange is projected to go into the third round, and New England took him right away in the first round, and then you trade Shaq Mason for nothing. This pick just doesn't look good at all. I don't know what Bill Belichick is doing, but Patriots really, in my opinion, didn't have a good draft, and I'm happy with that because that helps us as Bills fans. So I'm all good with that just because it's really not going to help you. So pick 30 is the Kansas City Chiefs once again. Oh boy. And this time they take George Karlaftis out of Purdue. Hopefully I said that last name right. And I could have seen them taking him in the mock. I did see them taking him in the mock. I think it's the Andy Reid pick. I think it's, they're going to continue to bolster this defense after that performance against the Bills. Just like the Bills are going to continue to work on their defense after our performance against Kansas City. So I think it's a good pick for the Chiefs. He'll be with Frank Clark. He'll be with Jones, and they'll just continue to build that defense up again. We're going to have to watch out for Kansas City like always, but I think with Kansas City trading away Tyreek Hill, I don't think they're going to be as good of a team as they were, but they're still a threat with Patrick Mahomes at the end of the day. So it's always important to watch what your rivals, what your other teams are doing, because it's important to note that. It's important to see what other teams are doing, because like Brandon Beane says, teams are watching what you're doing. So pick 31 is the Cincinnati Bengals, defending AFC champions Cincinnati Bengals, and they take Daxton Hill, a defensive back out of Michigan. Not a bad pick by any means. This guy could play safety. I think they said he could play corner, and they need it because Jesse Bates is on a franchise tag, their best player on defense arguably, and if they can't re-sign him, they're going to need a replacement, and Daxton Hill might be able to be that guy in a rookie contract, but they need to keep Jesse Bates if they can, because he is a ball hawk of a safety. And number 32, this pick went from LA to Detroit for the Matthew Stafford trade, then Detroit traded with Minnesota, like I said earlier, so now they're on the clock. With that, they took Lewis Cine, a defensive back out of Georgia. Not a bad pick. It's not a terrible pick for the Minnesota Vikings. You had pick 12, and you could have taken Kyle Hamilton, and I think Kyle Hamilton was the better safety. He's, like I said, 6'4". Could have taken him, but now it goes to the Baltimore Ravens to add to that defense, and Baltimore's always had insane defenses over the years, so Kyle Hamilton will help out the Ravens, and Lewis Cine could help out that Minnesota Vikings defense, that Minnesota Vikings secondary that really needs it. They added Andrew Booth in the second round, so that'll help them too. They bring back Patrick Peterson, a veteran presence, which will be needed for the rookies, but they really need to work on that defensive secondary. Just trading your pick, not only trading your pick 20 spots back when your team isn't that good, but to a division rival and they get a wide receiver and your secondary's weak, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know what the Vikings management was thinking there. We're going to now get into the other draft picks for the Bills after this, because I'm not going to go over every round. It's going to take too long. I would like to, but it's going to take too long. So we're just going to go to the other picks for the Bills now. So first, obviously, we have Bills corner Kaiir Elam, and this was without a doubt going to be the first pick. Bills were going to take a corner, and like I said before, Elam happened to be the last player on Brandon Beane's board, so he had to move up and get him. Otherwise, they had nobody left on their board, and who knows if the Bills would even have drafted in the first round. Maybe they could have traded back, or maybe they would have reached on Breece Hall, but I'm not sure. Elam is 6'2", 193 pounds, and that's a really good size for a corner. Long, lengthy, certainly has the speed. He's made plays at Florida, and everyone that I've seen on the internet or wherever that's a Florida Gators fan said this guy's an absolute stud, and he seems like he's going to come in right away and really be effective. Like, he can really come in, learn the ropes, and without a doubt take over for Tre'Davious White, and then when he comes back, he could be the number 2 corner. It's exactly what the Bills needed, and they fill a hole that needed to be fixed, and he's on a rookie contract, or will be on a rookie contract, and it sure enough will help this defense that's already loaded. When healthy, you'll now have Tre'Davious White, you'll have Kaiir Elam, cornerback 2, you'll have Taron Johnson in the slot, Dane Jackson's the 4th corner, and then you'll have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer behind him. That's without a doubt, that's a really good secondary. That's got to be one of the best secondaries in the league, if not the best, arguably. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit for this defensive backfield. They're animals, they're ball hawks, they're hungry, and they do nothing but put in the work, and that's what some of these guys have done since coming here in 2017 or 2018. And Elam will definitely come in, and I think he'll mesh well with these guys, and they'll show him the ropes, and he'll get going, and he'll do what he's got to do. But I think this is a good pick for the Bills. There's really no other way they could have gone here at round 1. With Buffalo's second round pick 31 overall, the Bills take James Cook, running back out of Georgia, 5'11", 199 pounds, and the younger brother of Vikings running back Dalvin Cook. He ran a 4.42 40-yard dash. He was considered definitely a top 50 overall pick, and you needed to add to the running back position, because not that Singletary wasn't getting the job done. He did emerge at the end of the season, but the writing is on the wall here for Zach Moss. We're not really sure what his future holds, but I don't see him getting caught this year, because certainly the Bills are having their running back one of the future be James Cook. You spend a second round pick on your running back, he's got to get some reps. He's got to get some reps in. Obviously, he's got to learn the playbook. This guy's fast, he's reliable, and he can catch passes out of the backfield. That was one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that the Bills took Cook in the second round here. He can line up as a slot receiver if needed, and he could even do the wildcat plays, but he catches passes out of the backfield. That's what they wanted with J.D. McKissick before he decided to basically screw the team over and go back to Washington last minute. Not that the deal was in place, or not that the deal was finalized, but it was basically pen to paper, and then McKissick ended up going back in the end. Like, at the last second, he ended up going back to Washington. That was just a mess, and they still talk about McKissick because that really just bothers Brandon Beane, and I don't blame him. There was a contract there was an agreed contract, and he backed out of it last minute, and it was just a slap to the face, really. James Cook will come in, and he will definitely be the running back 1 of this team. I think he can get the starting job by the end of the year. He certainly looks like a very versatile athlete. Watching his footage at Georgia, he really was just everything you wanted in a running back, and the Bills need a legit number 1 running back here, and I think James Cook can be that guy. I would have been fine with Breece Hall or some of these other guys too. Breece Hall ended up going to the Jets, but the Bills take James Cook. I got no problem with that. I think this is going to be an underrated pick in this draft class, because if the Bills can get a solid complementary running game going with James Cook, and he catches passes out of the backfield, and you add O.J. Howard now with the dual tight end threats, I mean, this offense playbook's wide open. Everything is wide open. Defenses are going to have a hard time trying to figure out this offense. It's going to be a hell of a fucking year, like I've been saying. It's going to be a fucking crazy fucking offense to watch, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And even with Josh Allen alone, you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. That's the beauty of it. You are expecting the unexpected every play with this offense. I got no issues with that. With Buffalo's third round pick, they take linebacker Terrell Bernard out of Baylor. He had a 5.94 prospect grade according to NFL.com here. He runs a 4.25 at the 20-yard dash, 6'1", 224 pounds, 30-inch arms. Not that any of that really matters, but I like to point it out anyway. This guy here can come in and be effective on special teams and create nice depth. We don't know the future of Tremaine Edmonds after this year. He's on his 5th-year option. Bernard, he could end up being something. You never know. Matt Milano was a 5th-round pick, and he's now our starting outside linebacker, so Bernard can become something. Bernard can sit here and definitely be effective to certainly become something on this defense, because guys that come on this defense are able to have a good chemistry, mesh well together, and create plays. We even saw some nice plays from Tyrell Dotson, young linebacker, and AJ Klein was able to step in for Matt Milano at certain points over the last 2 years, and any of these guys you can plug in and be effective on Sean McDermott's defense here. On his draft profile, it says that Bernard contributed heavily on defense in 2018. This is a couple years ago. 47 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 interception, while starting 2 of the 11 games played. He became a team leader on the field the following season, gathering second-team All-Big 12 accolades after leading the Bears with 112 tackles, 9.5 tackles for a loss, and 4.5 sacks, 1 interception, 2 pass breakups, and 3 fumble recoveries. I know it's college, but I don't know about you, but that sounds like a potential to be a starting NFL linebacker. Bernard can have that kind of production on this defense. It's a steal of a pick in the 3rd round. We're able to reload at middle linebacker if Bernard can become something. And I don't think this is a bad pick by any means, because even when the Bills are a good, complete team, Brandon Beane's always trying to upgrade at every position. And even if you can't upgrade, it's always good to have younger guys come in. You create more depth. You create more of a sense of urgency by constantly trying to improve the team. And that's something that I think is very important when doing roster construction. So Buffalo didn't have a 4th round pick because they traded 2 spots up with Baltimore to grab Elam. They have a 5th round pick, and with that 5th round pick, they take Khalil Shakir out of Boise State, a wide receiver. He's 6 foot and 190 pounds. Now, he is a Boise State product. Some are projecting Shakir to outperform that draft slot. Shakir has the foundation around him to support him on the endeavor. While Buffalo traded for Stephon Diggs, the team's number 1 option, he was originally a 5th round pick himself. This is according to Bills Wire on USAtoday.com. This here is a good statement, a good way to look at Shakir, because Josh Allen can make any wide receiver look good. I mean, even Jake Kumro has gotten a touchdown here and there over the years. Now, some people are saying that, yes, it was a good thing they added Shakir, but they still need to have more depth, or they need to sign somebody else or whatever. But the main reason I figured the Bills should take a receiver is because if Stephon Diggs or Jameson Crowder or Gabriel Davis or Isaiah McKenzie go down, your depth is far worse off. The position is weaker. It takes a huge toll just from one injury. But with Shakir here, I think he can make an impact. Why not? You have a rookie with fresh legs. It definitely could help. Gabe Davis was the 4th round pick. This seems like another Gabe Davis type pick. And like it just said, Stephon Diggs was the 5th round pick himself. So I think honestly Shakir's not a bad pick at all. And if anything, again, creates better depth for the team. And he's also young. So along with all these other guys, he's young though. He's like 20, 21 years old, I think. But I think it's a good pick for the Bills, and it just allows there to be more depth at a needed position. So Buffalo made some moves also trading up and down when they did, because they traded back twice before they got James Cook. They were able to acquire some more picks because they lost a 4th round pick. With their first 6th round selection, they took punt god Matt Araiza. I hope I said his last name right. Out of San Diego State. This guy can boot the ball down the field, and everyone's sitting here talking about this guy's hang time. Honestly, I don't care, and I understand hang time is important. I'm not saying it's not. I don't really care about hang time with a punter when Matt Haack, our punter last year, was punting pretty much around 20 yards a punt and shanking every other punt. There were a couple block punts, and it was just a mess. It was just a fucking mess. And every time he went out there, I swear my heart dropped. If you really want to know what I'm talking about here, you can YouTube Buffalo versus the Jets week 18. I mean, the whole time they kept putting him back out there, probably to prove himself, which is understandable. But it was so fucking frustrating because it's like, dude, you just can't punt the ball. And you have one job. You have one job as a punter, is to punt the ball, and you can't do it. And they gave him a 3-year contract. Given the 2 years were option years, but they ended up restructuring it. He's still on the team. But I think if you have a guy like Matt Haack on your team, any punter's an upgrade over that. I mean, if your guy can't punt the ball, he can't punt the ball. You draft a guy with the nickname Punt God, instant upgrade. I got no issues with it. Him and Tyler Bass, I think, are going to be a great duo together, and maybe he'll need to work on holding the ball or whatever. I don't know. It's an instant upgrade over Matt Haack, and it fills another hole that we don't really talk about, because this offense is so good, we're rarely punting the ball. We rarely punt the ball, so I don't really care about his hang time. If he can punt the ball and boot it down the field like he can, then I'm fine with it. Not to mention, this guy played quarterback before. This guy's an athlete. He can actually tackle, not just get a fake tackle tackle or get completely just pummeled like every other punter and not actually try. Like, this guy can hit. This guy's an athlete, and I'm all for it, and I'm so happy. When we made this pick, I got up and I was screaming over a punter, because it was a much needed upgrade, and I'm so glad they got this guy because I didn't think they were actually going to do it. I really didn't think they were going to draft Punt God, and I'm glad that they did, and I'm so happy. And I'm actually going to fucking pay attention to the punting this year because I want to see this guy just boot it if needed be, and then we have good field position, and then we can get the ball back. I think it's a good pick. I'm not at all mad about it. It is a 6th-round pick, and yes, you could have drafted other positions, but I'm glad this happened. With their next 6th-round pick, the Bills took cornerback Christian Benford out of Villanova, and he's 6'1", 205 pounds. Another corner that's over 6 foot adds depth to the position. The Bills had 8 corners on contract before this draft. Now they have 10, and if need be, they could probably put them on these guys on practice squad that won't make the team. Considering that they lost, Rashad Wildgoose last year, I don't blame them for drafting 2 corners this year to make up for losing Wildgoose off of practice squad poaching. So no issue with it. It's just depth. He could probably be a good special teams guy. But 6'1", it's a good size for a corner, and I'm sure he can make some plays if need be. But we've had, like, Dane Jackson was a 7th-round pick. I think Cam Lewis was undrafted, and these guys have been able to make plays. Why can't Benford? I think Brandon Beane really has done a good job with this draft class. And then with their final 6th selection, they took offensive lineman Luke Tenuta out of Virginia Tech. This guy is 6'9", 322 pounds. But the knock on him is his small arms. This guy's massive. A fucking animal. A fucking tank on the offensive line. Him and Tommy Doyle provide really good depth at the size that they are. And Spencer Brown was, huge, is a big guy too. I think it just provides really good depth at the offensive line, and you can never have enough offensive linemen, I feel, because we had lack of depth at offensive line, and it showed, and I think adding to that is really important more than anything this year because they had so much depth on the defensive line, but they had little to none on the offensive line, and it was frustrating to watch. I think this can be a good pick, and if anything, he'll probably just be a backup, or he'll maybe he'll be on the practice squad for a bit. He can definitely protect Josh Allen. I mean, he's 6'9". I mean, he's a big guy. Can't knock on Brandon Beane for taking someone at that size. Even if this guy doesn't work out, I mean, I don't blame Brandon Beane for taking him. I mean, he's 6'9". That's all I really gotta say. Wyatt Teller was a 5th-round pick. Given the Bills didn't, give him enough time and they did give up on him, Wyatt Teller is in Cleveland, and he's arguably the best right guard in football right now. So I think if they give this guy time, hopefully they won't have the same mistake like they did with Wyatt Teller, and maybe he can be something. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. And then with the final pick in the 7th round, this was an early 7th-round pick. The Bills took another linebacker, Balen Spector out of Clemson, 6'2", 230 pounds. He seems to really be able to read plays. He recorded 210 career tackles, 9 sacks in 53 games, 21 of which were starts, mind you. Mainstay at weak side linebacker past 2 seasons, besides fellow Bruce brother, quote-unquote, James Stolsky. This is from the Clemson Tigers page on SportsIllustrated.com. I'm reading this off of that. The fact that he plays weak side, 210 career tackles, this guy can definitely provide depth for, Matt Milano, and I don't see how you go wrong with this, because Brandon Beane was talking about Spector, and he was kind of like an AJ Klein pick, like being able to replace AJ Klein, like Spector could be that kind of guy, and I got no problem with this pick. The Bills really do need help at linebacker, depth-wise, because you have Edmonds and Dotson, and you do have Tyler Matovich, a special teams ace, but after that, you don't really have anybody. So bringing Spector in and bringing Bernard in will definitely help with that depth issue, and certainly can't complain about adding fresh legs, certainly can't complain about adding more depth. That's something I'm going to repeat a lot because it is really important when building a team, you have the necessary depth, and you have to keep reloading the talent. You have to keep adding to the talent, like I said. Otherwise, your team's going to fall. Your team is going to start declining, and that's not what you want. The Bills also added some undrafted free agents right after the draft. Once the draft concludes, there will be undrafted free agents that will hit the open market, and that's when teams start picking up the phones and calling all these guys and trying to bring in guys that they were interested in that they did not end up drafting. Just continue to add to the team, because when you go into training camp, you got to have the 75 roster limit. So it's important because maybe you can find a gem. There have been a lot of guys that came in the league that were undrafted and ended up being some of the best in football. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough, and that's where undrafted free agency comes into play here. So some Some names they add: offensive lineman Alec Anderson out of UCLA, running back Raheem Blackshear out of Virginia Tech, defensive tackle Prince Emil out of Penn, wide receiver Keith Corbin III out of Jackson State, where Deion Sanders is currently coaching the team, cornerback Trayvon Fuller out of Tulsa, defensive end Kingsley Jonathan out of Syracuse, offensive lineman Derek Kerstetter out of Texas, wide receiver Neil Payu out of Brigham Young, wide receiver Malik Williams out of Appalachian State, tight end Jalen Weidermeyer out of Texas A&M. Hopefully I said those last names right and some of those colleges right, because I've actually not heard of some of those colleges before. So just bear with me on that. I'm still learning some of this stuff too. Continue to add undrafted free agents, continue to add to the team, and continue to try and upgrade. Got no issue with that. You got to keep trying to do what you can to make your team better. And if you find a diamond in the rough, undrafted, and at a very low salary, it does nothing but help the team. So you just got to continue to help the team and continue doing the right thing and continue to make the team better. That's what Brandon Beane's doing here, because the goal at the end of the day is to win a Super Bowl and be the best. And then another side note I just want to add before we end the podcast episode here. The Eagles took undrafted free agent quarterback Carson Strong out of Nevada. The reason he was supposed to be like a 4th round pick, but the reason nobody took him was because of his knee issues. Some doctors think he can't play football anymore because of how bad his knee is. Other doctors say no, he could still play, just needs to rest, he might have to redshirt. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, Jalen Hurts it's a make or break year for him. Carson Strong had one of the best arms in this draft class, and he could be a diamond in the rough for them if he's able to play and his knee gets better. You never know. It's just something I wanted to point out because, Kurt Warner was bagging groceries at one point, and then he ended up winning a Super Bowl with the Rams. So I'm just pointing it out there that Carson Strong had a really good arm in this draft class, one of the arguably the best in this draft class, and he went undrafted. He goes to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, if something were to happen to him, Carson Strong came in, maybe there's an emergence there, but who knows. Also, Bears quarterback Nick Foles was released. They cut ties with him after 2 years because they took on his contract from Jacksonville that he signed way back in 2019. Now that he's a free agent, he could go back to Philly too and back up Jalen Hurts. Just something I wanted to mention here before we end the episode. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Sabres, and we're going to be going over just everything that needs to be said, everything that has to be done. And now that the season's over, all that is concluded, we just need to go through everything and catch up, because there's a lot to talk about there and a lot of pain and agony and frustration, but with a bittersweet ending here as we ended this past season. So we'll be talking about the Sabres in the next episode. With the Bills here, they're going to start rookie mini camp, and then they're going to go into training camp, and then before you know it, in the blink of an eye, we'll be in preseason, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, it'll be that week 1 opener that we've all been waiting for. So this is Mike McCracken here with the Slack McCracken Sports Podcast, signing off here on episode 3, and hopefully I look forward to seeing you in episode 4, just talking about the Buffalo Sabres, and we'll see you then.
Pete Abatante, the league.
Look at him.
Go get him.
Where's his walk-in music?
Here it comes.
Here he is.
The Buffalo Bills selection.
Looks like one of the Steiner brothers from pro wrestling fame.
Good morning football.
Nice job.
Good evening, Las Vegas. Good evening, my brothers and sisters on the NFL Network. And good evening, Western New York. I find it perfect that the Bills are drafting in this city of luck, of chance, because you all know, and I know, the only thing in this world that can stop Josh Allen is the flip of a coin. So Mafia, mount up! And every other fan base, listen up! Chiefs fans, Raiders fans, Bengals fans, in my hands, I hold the most important pick of this entire round, because this pick is the only pick who will win the Super Bowl in his rookie year. With the 89th pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Super Bowl 57 champion Buffalo Bills select my man, Terrell